Yeah, you might wonder what's happening here.
One of the best museums so far.
We deserve reward for eating this. No, for Goedemorgen allemaal from Ghent or Ghent in the local language. We are in the capital of East Flanders, the East Flanders region, and as you can hear, we are at the train station. We just arrived with the train from Dendermonde. We are at Ghent St. Peter's. It is the most famous train station of Ghent. This is how it looks with the paintings. It was built in, I believe it was 1912. Well, in the 20th century for an international expo. And outside, we're gonna check the outside because they have a tower. They noticed later that it was a bit tilted, so they had to, so there are maps, it was a bit tilted, so they had to renovate it. So that's the Flemish government building with the lion head, the lion representing the Flemish, and the Walloons are represented by a rooster. And that's the tower. It was renovated because it was a bit unstable.
I'm pleasantly surprised by the entrance of Ghent, like the station and surroundings.
Ghent was one of the biggest and most important cities in the 9th century in Europe. It was a blooming, wealthy city full of merchants and bankiers. Compared to, like, it was richer than other countries in Europe, like one city richer than some countries. It's hard to believe, but this was a very rich place. Now it's still, still a rich place, but not as much as in the past. It also has many canals, but they closed some of those canals when the cars arrived and they had car traffic, because it was a bit unhandy. Now they are reopening some of those canals to make the city more beautiful and to piss off the car drivers. You also have a tram that takes you directly from the station to the center, but since our museums are along that route, it doesn't make sense to take a tram and pay for it. Maybe on the way back to the station, because Ghent is very big, so if we are tired we can just take the tram. You can see the canals here, and over there is the city museum in that old building, and that's where we are gonna go first to learn a bit about Ghent. But it's definitely more a car city than Brugge yesterday.
Yeah, you might wonder what's happening here. We have these kind of cases for our shoes that protect the floor, because they have this interactive map of Ghent on the ground, where you can see how big Ghent is. So, pay attention, people. This is the station. We went through here, then through here, took this street to the left, and we are at this museum, and then we'll need to continue. First we go there, but then we continue
to reach the center. This is the St. Pavo's Cathedral, the Cathedral of Ghent. And well, this is basically the center. You can see all the canals. You can even take a boat to do a tour of the city. Yeah.
In the 7th century, Ghent consists of scattered hamlets. The most important of them, Ganda, is strategically located at the confluence of the Leie and the Scheldt rivers. It has been a trading center since Roman times. It is in Ganda that the count rules the region on behalf of the Frankish king. In around 630, a missionary arrives from the south of France. His name is Amandus, and he is resolved to convert the people to Christianity. He founds St. Peter's Abbey, his residence, on the Blandijnberg in Ganda. Amandus builds a church that eventually becomes St. Pavo's Abbey. Ganda flourishes due to St. Pavo's. The abbey owns vast areas of agricultural land, and the villagers sell the harvest. Trade relations extend even into the Rhineland. But the city of Ghent is first mentioned by an Arab. The most important of the above-mentioned capital cities of Flanders is Ghent, lying on the western banks of the Rhine. It is a beautiful, flourishing city with many stately homes and grand vistas. It possesses gardens, orchards, and fields that provide a continual harvest. The sea is 35 miles to the north of the city. That's what's written here in Arabic. Although Al-Idrisi incorrectly places Ghent on the banks of the Rhine. So was it a mistake? Or was he just misinformed? So this is also part of the abbey. There's a tomb here. Is it from one of the counts? Let's see. From Hugo II. It was in the Middle Ages that Ghent really became a very important metropolis. Merchants would assemble here at first and sell their goods, trade with each other. It was because of those merchants that the city gained traction and became a very attractive city. So Ghent was an important center of trade and politics. The important thing to know here is that those merchants eventually became politicians, so they did some kind of lobbyism. Here they did some important buildings of Ghent in Lego, with Lego pieces. You can see, I think this is the belfry of Ghent. Or no, actually, might be that one, the belfry. And now we can build our own things with Lego here. But I don't know what we will build. Yeah, we got apparently really entertained building stuff with Legos, and now we've lost a lot of time. So we need to go now. Here you can see what would have happened if, for example, the airport of Ghent would have been built till the end. Then, like that, Ghent would have an own airport, Brussels West. So we are done with the Museum of the City of Ghent. It was very interesting. We learned a lot. Very entertaining, very fun for families as well. We really loved it. And we only took 1.5 hours. Yeah.
I think it's one of the best museums so far of the Netherlands and Belgium together, and Germany.
And Portugal and Spain.
Right.
Yeah, so one of the best, and France, and one of the
France.
best museums that we've visited, I guess.
Yeah.
Voila. Now we are going to the next museum, which is at the Citadel Park.
Yeah.
So we are approaching the Museum for Fine Arts here at the Citadel Park. You can recognize it by the structure with the 4 columns looking very old, but it's not that old as it looks. So let's get inside. Yeah, this museum is about art. As you can see, classical art, but they also have more modern art somewhere else, I believe. It's similar to what we were seeing at the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. So we are already done with the museum. It's one of the most interesting museums in Belgium if you like fine arts and paintings. We don't, that's why we were very fast. And now we're gonna have lunch at the Citadel Park, which is next to the museum. It's this park. For whoever is wondering about what we are eating, since Ghent was a very important city in the Middle Ages, we are eating porridge in the style of the Middle Ages with bacon, mushrooms and so on. Yeah, we deserve reward for eating this, our waffle, after this. We'll see. Well, done with the delicious lunch. Now we are gonna go check out the University Museum of Ghent. The University of Ghent is actually quite interesting because after the independence, after Belgium became an independent state in 1830, yeah, like that, the university's language became slowly French, and then with the Flemish movement around the 1970s, they made a push to turn the university more and more into a Dutch-speaking university until it became true. Now it's a Dutch-speaking university. They ordered a Dutch-speaking architect to build a 4th tower, because the university before had 3 towers, and they built a 4th tower by a Dutch architect to kind of make a statement. If you love modern art, don't for oh, why do they have something pointy there? Never mind. If you love modern art, don't forget to check out the smack, but it is not our smack. So we are at the gum museum, so the chewing gum museum, I mean gum, so Ghent Universiteitsmuseum. Yeah, we're gonna learn about the university. I guess they just have some science stuff and not much about the history of the university, but let's see how it is. I am not sure. Yeah, so this museum is about natural sciences, as you would expect, and there are some weird statues, animals, ceremonial masks, and human remains that we are not allowed to film.
Am I a human remain?
No.
Right.
What if it's just sleeping? Playing in French at a Flemish museum, now that is provoking. We are making a psychological test. What we really like about this museum is that it is scientific. It's not like that pseudoscience from the Nemo Amsterdam Museum. This is really about facts. You see men, women, that duality instead of
Yeah.
Yes, it's about facts, but also it recognizes that there is doubt in science and that there's a part of imagination.
Exactly.
And so it's not black and white, it's not that everything is true. You also need to keep thinking about things.
Yeah. Because science comes when a doubt appears. Then you start investigating until you find a solution.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, this is how things are. This museum is definitely more academic, more scientific.
Basis van de strategie kunnen zeggen waar een bepaald voorwerp vandaan komt. En anderzijds weten we natuurlijk archeologisch waar dat materiaal gevonden is.
We are done with the University Museum after 1.5 hours more or less, maybe a bit more. Now we are going to the St. Peter's Abbey. I think it was St. Peter's.
Yes.
Yeah. Just through here, passing a fallen tree on the street. Yeah. And this is the university building, very modern. Well, that was the first part. We hope to see you again in the second part, which will be available really soon.